The Bearcats are great at recruiting, but there's one thing they're even better at, and it's going to be a huge advantage for them when they join the Big 12.
Are Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you so much for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. It is free and available everywhere you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Subscribe to our Locked On Bearcats YouTube channel, now up to 390 subscribers and counting. Alex Frank with you, your host each and every day. So the Bearcats we know are great at recruiting, but there's one thing that they are maybe better at and maybe something we don't appreciate that they're really good at as much. And that is developing players. I got a comment from one of you who listened to last week's show on Thursday. Getting the 4 and 5-star recruits are nice, but the strength of UC is the coaching and player development. Sauce Gardner was a 3-star, and look what he turned into. And I got to thinking, he's right. Or they're right. Whoever said that, they are correct. Because let's be honest, the Cincinnati Bearcats have landed their share of 4-star players. Evan Prater, Yaheem Thomas, Jerome Ford, Ben Bryant even. But what they're even better at is developing players. Sauce Gardner goes from a 3-star player to an NFL draft pick. Desmond Ridder goes from a quarterback with one offer to being a 3rd-round draft pick and potentially a starter in the NFL. Myjai Sanders goes from this overlooked defensive end to a third round draft pick by the Arizona Cardinals. Brian Cook goes from overlooked in the secondary because there were so many great players to being a 3rd-round draft pick by the Kansas City Chiefs. Alec Pierce goes from a wide receiver who there was talk of moving him to linebacker to being a 2nd-round pick and the second Bearcat taken off the board in the 2nd round of the draft. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that for as great as the Cincinnati Bearcats are in recruiting, they're even better at developing players. All those guys that I just mentioned, Joel DeBlanco next, Curtis Brooks, Elijah Ponder, Josiah DeGuara, players who you don't normally think about or that aren't prized players in recruiting. But damn it, they're pretty good when they get on the field, right? We celebrate recruiting. We celebrate when a program lands a 5-star player, like Texas landing Arch Manning. We celebrate when they land that big hometown product, big hometown commit, prized possession. We celebrate that. But what we don't celebrate is when we land players who maybe we're not thinking about mainstream, but we are in terms of how good they can be over the course of 4 years. We revere Desmond Ridder, but it took a while for us to get there. We revere Sauce Gardner. Took even him a little bit to get there. We revere Alec Pierce. He didn't break out until this past year. It's the development of players. And this makes it so easier to me, and less stressful when it comes to recruiting. If you miss out on a certain player, and he goes to a school that maybe isn't so great at developing players, you take that, right? Because when you are good at developing, you can be good at both. If you're only good at recruiting, not developing, what good does being good at recruiting do for you? This is why the Cincinnati Bearcats are in such a great position. They have so much momentum in terms of recruiting and the star players they are landing. When you're not a blue blood school like Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, one of those schools, you want to go to a school or you have to be good at developing. That's how you get players. Because you can then say to future recruits, hey, we can develop you. You can become an NFL caliber player. And look at the players who come through this program. Remember when the Bearcats had 9 players drafted? And that was no doubt the biggest testament to that 2021 recruiting class? That's what this is. Okay. So when I think about the Bearcats, if they're good at developing already, they're in a great position going into the Big 12 because you can bank on the development of the players that you get, and you're going to get some good players. When you're good at developing, you're good at both developing and recruiting. That's what this Cincinnati Bearcats program is about. Coming up, though, will it be harder for the Bearcats to continue to be great at developing players in the Big 12? We explore that question next after a word from LinkedIn. As you gear up for fall, just like the Bearcats are for this 2022 season, you need the right people on your team to help your small business, like the Bearcats offense will hopefully be this year, firing on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to help make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. You can create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So when you're good at developing players, you can be good at both developing and recruiting. And I don't think it should be harder when the Bearcats joined the Big 12. Because you have to look at what they've done in the Luke Fickell era in terms of who they've played. They've played Ohio State, Notre Dame, Georgia, Alabama, UCLA. And then they've beaten some of those teams and should have beaten another team in Georgia. Let me ask you this. Are you really scared from a football perspective of anybody in the Big 12? The fact that you have played several blue blood programs in college football, the fact that you have beaten Notre Dame in Notre Dame, which was a testament to the program, which was a testament to the players that you had and developed. College football is tradition rich when it comes to the history of the sport. It doesn't celebrate the development of teams and the emergence of teams. It is tradition rich. It celebrates great historic programs like Ohio State and Alabama and Texas and Georgia, all those schools. It doesn't celebrate the Cincinnati Bearcats had arguably one of the most talented rosters in the country last year. And yet it felt like, they weren't getting as much attention as Alabama or Georgia. That's because Cincinnati didn't land, the 5-star, 4-star recruits, whatever. They didn't land Devontae Smith, or they didn't land Brian Robinson Jr., or John Mechie III, or Jamison Williams. They didn't land Trayvon Walker, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, George Pickens, whatever. But just because they didn't land those players doesn't mean that, hey, they couldn't compete on a national level. You knew this program was in good hands and going places when they should have beaten Georgia in the Peach Bowl. And that Georgia team had a lot of players who played on last year's national championship team. Let's be honest. You remember Jordan Davis. You remember Trayvon Walker. You remember George Pickens. You remember Zamir White and James Cook. Those are all great players. Cincinnati had great players too. And we saw in that game the development of those players. Sanders, Ritter, Jerome Ford. You look at players that have been developed over the years. They didn't just become great players in the American that led Cincinnati to a surprise New Year's Six Bowl. No. They developed into great players who could become New Year's Six Bowl worthy. That's who they were. That's who they became. And you go to the Big 12. You're familiar with two teams coming in, And I'm not scared of BYU. I'm not really scared of any team in the Big 12 once Texas and Oklahoma leave. I'm not scared of any team. You can bring up that physical element that the Big 12 is developing. You can bring that up. But Cincinnati has an element of physicality to them. Once again, the Cincinnati Bearcats are prepared and they are punching above their weight class. They are uniquely prepared to join the Big 12 because they are recruiting the right way. They're developing the right way too. It's amazing. We love to talk about recruiting. Whoa, can they land this 4-star? Oh, but there's a 5-star here. Hopefully they can land him too. We don't appreciate developing players. When you say the word developing, that's not fancy. That's hard work, man. Yeah. How do you think the Bearcats got to the college football playoff in year 5 under Luke Fickell? Hard work, man. Development. That's how they got there. That's huge going in to the Big 12 that they have that. And normally when you move from a group of 5 school conference to a Power 5, it might be difficult. I don't think for this program it will be. Because there is a culture in place and there is the sense and expectation that when we develop you, you are going to be a really good player. Up next, we'll take a look at some of the key players that are in development right now, have been developed, and why they are also important for this year and going into the Big 12. But first, a word from Built Bar. If you haven't tried the Puffs yet, you're depriving yourself of one of life's great joys. This is true, especially when I tell you about this flavor, cookie dough. Let me introduce to you the cookie dough chunk puffs. They've got a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks. Yeah, they do. And of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. Yeah, that's true. So, what's great about this is all their bars are made with collagen protein. And I'm not a doctor. I'm saying what this script tells me. Your body absorbs them more efficiently. I guess I learn something new every day, too. They provide tons of health benefits, and you get to eat something that tastes good and is good for you. So, you are going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff. Whether you need a snack or for your workout, a late night treat, or just need to grab a quick bite, Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built Bar. Use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. I could go up and down this list of players on the Cincinnati Bearcats who are developmental players. The Pace brothers. You knew who they were coming in. Deshaun was kind of buried on the depth chart coming into the season, but boy, has he emerged and now is on national award watch lists. Ivan Pace coming from the Mid-American. You hear John Garcia Jr., he talked about how he doesn't think it's going to be that hard for him to adjust to playing at a much better level in terms of the American Athletic Conference. Yaheem Thomas, 4-star recruit, excited to see how he turns out. How has he learned, developed, and matured in his 3 years, or 2 years rather, when he hasn't really seen the field a lot? Javon Hicks, kind of a guy who, we knew him as James Wiggins' replacement. Well, in his first game, a fumble recovery and an interception. And that led to a terrific season for him. Corey Kiner, he's new to the program. He wasn't here last year. But he's Cincinnati. He's from the city. And hopefully the coaching staff can incorporate him and develop him into the tough and nasty campaign. Ben Bryant and Evan Prater. Those guys are developmental projects. Ben Bryant spent his time here as a backup. How does he now develop if he's the starter? And same for Evan Prater. We knew he was great coming in. Can he live up to it? Sometimes developing is not just about making a lower rated recruit better. It's also about taking the star recruit and making sure that his full potential is reached. Josh Wiley and Leonard Taylor, tight end tandem. You really know a lot about those guys coming in. They were from the state of Cincinnati, but now they might be the best tight end tandem in the country. They might be, NFL draft picks next year. Tyler Scott, kind of a team that has a receiving core that has a lot of options, not really a star player. Maybe he's that guy. He broke out last year, 5 touchdowns, several deep touchdown passes. First play of the season, 81 yards. Nick Mardner coming from Hawaii, now coming to Cincinnati. How long does he stay? Can he develop into that dual wide receiver? Can play outside, can play in the slot. And the list goes on and on and on. But what I'm telling you is this roster is full of players who have been developed, are still in development, or will be, like Jaheim Thomas, like Jabari Taylor and Jawan Briggs and Malik Van, and guys like that, and other guys who haven't really seen the field, like Cayman Mateo at tight end, or Wilson Huber, who's been here 6 years. This program, what makes them so great and what makes them so prepared when they join the Big 12 is that they will develop players to the best that they can be, and that ultimately helps the team. That's going to do it for me today here on Locked On Bearcats. Thank you for making it your first listen every day. We got plenty of more to get to this week. Corey Kiner and his role. We'll talk to John Garcia Jr. We'll talk to Jason Jordan. There's your 3 shows. We are fast approaching kickoff in Fayetteville, 25 days away from the start of the 2022 Bearcats football season. Cannot wait to that. It's easy to prepare for shows then because we got so much to talk about. Thanks as always for making us your first listen every day. Now go make your second listen Locked On Big 12 with everyday host Josh Neighbors and the local experts of Locked On. They will take you across the Big 12 in 30 minutes. Locked On Big 12, make that your second listen. Follow me on Twitter at Frankie_90 with 2 N's and an ATI. You can follow me on Instagram, AlexFrank9_, or email me at alex3frank@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our Locked On Bearcats YouTube channel, up to 390 subscribers and counting. Follow us, too, to get an alert every time we drop a new episode. For the Locked On Bearcats podcast, my name is Alex Frank. Have a great, great rest of your day, and I will be back tomorrow here on Locked On Bearcats.